Recording in progress.
Should I show there? I turned on closed captions.
Oh, perfect.
Is this going to be shared in any public forum? We should probably try to remember to do that.
You're welcome. Are there any other members of staff able to join us this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
Pleasure to see you. There you go. Under some pressure, yeah. Potentially,
Why?
former board chair or observing any board chair.
Oh, here. I was like, oh, I was doing that. Oh. We're gonna do great.
I sort of know what I do. I got a board that told me I have talents and that I should use them.
I'm sure you do. I've talked to you many times. I have confidence.
Oh. Warms my heart. Or the void that it left. No, the keyboard policy. That
Change
was
that. I submitted about the service center.
no, the keyboard policy. That was written by Sam and Down.
Yeah, we already covered.
No. Oh, this is all on this one.
Yeah, no, it didn't get passed because it had to be, or it might have passed, but there were modifications that were
I got
needed.
it all.
So you'll notice in the appendices, a lot of those policies, and I appreciate that Adam did this, anything that needs to be modified is in red.
Yes.
So.
It's not for the fielder policy, but it's just the USC stuff. So like, but I'm just confused because it says new correspondence from the VPI. Is there additional amendments to it on top of the amendments that I got?
No, that would be the written, most recent draft that was put together.
Anyway.
All right. Without further ado, I will call the meeting to order. The 9th meeting of the CUSA Board of Directors here November 21st at 7:01 p.m. Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest with any item on the public agenda? Hearing none, we can move on to item 3, the approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Personally, I would like to move item 5 to the end of the agenda. Is there anyone who is opposed to that? So we'll move item 5 to become what would be now item 18 after the question and answer period. Are there any opposed? Just moving that to the end of the meeting. Seeing none, we have a motion to approve the agenda now as adopted. Be it resolved that the agenda for the 21st November regular board meeting be approved as written. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by President Lettieri. Do we have a seconder? Vice Chair Harris. All right. Moving swiftly along to item 4.1, the motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from October 2nd and November 14th. Be it resolved that the past minutes for the 2nd of November regular board meeting and 14th of November special board meeting be approved as written. So this would be the minutes from our meeting at the beginning of October and the minutes from the last board meeting that really we didn't have anything on the public session. President Lettieri? Oh. Moved by President Lettieri. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Jack Code. Right. Do we have any opposed to passing those minutes? Right. Seeing none, those minutes passed. we're skipping over what would be item 5, so moving on to item 6, presentations, delegations. I assume, although it's technically not on the agenda, we're going to do the budget under present. We're going to have a budget presentation.
Yes.
All right, I will pass it over to whoever it is.
Does that look like a, please, we're gonna have a bunch of.
We will be correct.
Yes. Yes, we will, Gray, and that, you'd like to start that now?
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense to start with the budget stuff, given I'm sure you're all here for the budget.
Yeah.
There's
so-
nothing particularly exciting.
Board minutes are crazy exciting. We could open it first and then share it.
And no, yeah, it is certainly interesting. I think what we prove with every tab is that there's work to be done. Yeah. All right, with that, would we like to cut the executive director off before he finishes the rest of the budget presentation and simply? Technically, there's no motion, so we don't have to formally reject the budget. However, I would advise that we actually make a motion now and essentially set a deadline for when this budget will come back to us. And I would like that to be well before Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah. Does anyone have any preferences for when that is? Is 2 weeks long enough? I think frankly, 2 weeks is going to have to be. That is-
But, oh, you're looking for a date?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be.
December 5th.
December 12th. Well, December 5th.
December 5th, I think. If we do the 12th, I will hopefully be at home. Sharing on Zoom again. I hate to add a board meeting to everybody's final week of school.
Before you, sorry, Greg, to interrupt, before you come to specificity on the actual date of the board meeting. It would be my intent to be able to work with various departments over the course of the next week to week and a half. To have this updated for you. And so maybe knowing that there is something, right, like there's. You might find that December 5th you might be able to do it sooner. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps,
My concern is if we don't set a hard date,
Oh,
it will come and go.
sorry, the hard date. Yes, for us to have information back to the board and go back to the issue.
To allow enough time for every directors that are very busy with their things. I think if you could have the budget ready sooner and still have the board meeting on the 5th, that would.
Yeah, no, I would like to have everything wrapped up no later than the 2nd and in your hands.
I would still need the full week to get.
Yeah, I mean,
No plans, but like with everything going on, especially the other term, I definitely need the sooner that you get the documents for the 5th. I would appreciate it, but I think the 5th is probably your latest I could do.
from a board meeting perspective, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Now that I look at it,
Especially the document if this.
time flies right now. I can't believe that it's at where we're at. Time on
Yeah.
this.
The other option would be doing a Zoom, a virtual meeting, likely virtual on the 12th.
Set it for the 5th. I think that that's a reasonable goal, Greg, personally. I'll be able to have all the meetings I need to have. Steve and I will, set ourselves up with, and Nancy will settle, the three of us will set ourselves up in the boardroom and call people in and sharpen our pencils. We'll do what it needs to do what we need to do. For the board meeting.
Should we do this? Just in case we need more time, because this is not how I cut off.
Yeah, I mean, the 12th obviously gives us more time, but I mean, in terms of getting the actual document to you folks, would be from a hard deadline perspective, that delays the Friday before the board meeting.
I think if we move the board meeting to the 12th, the hard deadline for the budget would have to be the 5th.
I'll be aligning, but it's awesome.
So, yeah. I think
So the Monday before, so a full week
the whole week. Yeah,
to review.
yeah, by Monday morning. I think 8 o'clock Monday morning.
Tough as nails, this guy. But yeah,
But I agree, yeah.
Yeah,
that day. Monday's day.
all right. I'm just gonna write out some motion text. Be it resolved that the board request the executive director. To finalize the budget. By 8 AM. November, hold on, that's December. November 2nd, December 5th, 2022. And distribute. Directors. For their review, and we will schedule the actual meeting. After that, we don't have to schedule the meeting with this motion. The text I'm proposing, be it resolved that the board request the executive director to finalize the budget by 8 AM, 8 AM December 5th, 2022, and distribute to directors for their review. I will move that.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Okay. Moving on in that case, there are no other presentations, if I'm correct in my assumption.
I wasn't prepared to do anything else.
All right, item 7, director's reports. Does any director have a report they would like to give? Hearing none, we can move to item 8, staff reports. There's a report from all staff listed as Appendix A in the board meeting agenda. Is there any verbal report to be given on that? No.
No, the board's been fairly up to speed on anything over and above those reports. They were originally prepared with the 14th board meeting in mind.
Night, Forest.
Good night.
Night, Forest. Thank you.
All right, given that, we move on to item 9, committee reports. We've got a report from the Finance and Governance Subcommittee on compensation.
Yeah, so the Finance and Governance Subcommittee and the HR Subcommittee met to review numerous items in compensation, presidential compensation, compensation for senior staff, as well as before compensation policies in the agenda today. Out of that meeting, 2 things came up. The first is that a recommendation has been made to the board that it authorizes an increase in the president's salary through an increase in the position's hourly rate, as well as retroactive payment for work done since May 1st, 2022. And the other item was just that it voted to approve sending before compensation policies to the board for
Was there any business, like actual business, arising out of that? obviously the increase in the president's salary.
Besides that, the other items that we discussed, the committee decided that it was not action. I'm referring to senior staff compensation.
Right. Did we come up with motion text for that we were going to recommend?
Not specifically.
Okay. That is something we probably want to do this evening. I think is to take action on that recommendation. Yeah, essentially, we had reviewed the compensation and determined that it was fair to give that salary increase given the change in the nature of the position. I believe, Yancey, you had in the agenda exactly what we came up with.
Yeah. Well,
That's fine. Sure what that was. Here it was me and drive or not. So I know exactly what we can stage for a moment.
Sorry. We just haven't noticed that Hannah and I are leaving
Sure. Technically, because it's a public meeting, you don't have to know that you're leaving, but I appreciate your diligence.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I appreciate the moral support.
I think I found it.
Also, y'all expect some invitations from me.
The increase is supposed to be increased to $27 per hour for 35 hours of work, up from $24 per hour for 20 per week.
Was that written in an agenda?
I think I attached.
Apologies for that, everyone. I'd just like to. I will do my own notes here. I know.
Remind me more than that.
Thankfully, the rest of our agenda is actually pretty quick. Well, apart from a couple of in-camera things, we shouldn't be here that late.
Are we taking a recess? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I can't really get to you, Lisa. Sure, let's come back at 9:05.
That's okay, just mute and turn on the video for the 5-minute break. Anything else?
Oh, sorry.
And then I realized that this is everybody we've got. Are we back on the sound?
Yeah,
Perfect. Let's call this back to order at 9:08. Put that in the minutes. I do like not having to take minutes while I'm also chairing. All right. So before we broke, we were discussing presidential compensation. During the recess, Hanse and I came up with a motion. Be it resolved that the board approve an increase in the president's salary to be based on an hourly rate of $27 per hour. Be it further resolved that this salary increase be approved retroactively to May 1st, 2022. Just for a bit of context on this, it's not that the president will be paid an hourly rate of $27 an hour. It's just that when they figure out what the salary should be based on, it will be based on an hourly rate of 27. So that salary will go up by some amount. The figure escapes me just at the moment. Also that this be approved retroactively. This is something that you may all remember at our very first meeting in April. Callie Ogden mentioned that presidential compensation needs to be looked at because the role of the president was being increased to full time. This is basically us just fulfilling that. They never got to it as the board of trustees back last year. The president has declared a conflict of interest for this. The minutes showed that, but the recording showed that as well. I can move this. Do we have a seconder? Let me get my initials in the correct order. Do we have any discussion on this? Most of us were there at the meeting. In fact, I think all of us were there. Were you? Oh, you were there. The rest of us were there, but yes.
in case you're interested, the budget line item where this would reside would be the VPS budget, just so you know.
Thanks. Yeah, my side joke, here we are trying to cut expenses, but no, this is something that this is something that we're supposed to be doing, and fairly enough. So, without any further discussion on this, all those in favor? All right, and Jody, I do see your hand up there. That is unanimous. All right. And then some fool who's probably going to need me is going to have to put this all in an actual document. All right, that's
It probably will go.
yeah, it'll be
Probably will.
it'll be me. All right. Moving on to, we don't have anything under item 10. Moving on to item 11, reconsideration of bylaw policy. We have the motion to amend the key holder policy. So yes, President Lettieri, you were correct. That should read amend. We did pass the key holders policy and we now want to amend the key holders policy. It is found under Appendix B. The new, I believe that's the new draft. Yes, there's the little, there is, I believe, one, is that one piece of red pen in there?
I may not have sent it in, I may not have sent it in red, I may not have put it in red myself.
Okay.
It's simply giving keys to the USC for the first floor space that they did grants by the board.
Okay, and that's the only change?
That is the only thing.
Okay. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Director Evans Charles. We have a seconder, Director O'Larry. Did practice for all your initials because that's way faster. Do we have any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? Right, that is unanimous. Right. Announcements and correspondence. We don't have any announcements and correspondence for the public session, unless anyone has gotten any that they haven't told me about. No, perfect. We can move on to item 13.1, which is the motion to adopt the council officer compensation policy. So this is found as Appendix C in your agenda package. This is moved by President Soikos Leturi. Do we have a seconder? Director Charles. President Leturi, would you like to speak to this? I can also speak to this, so, or anyone. This is basically, we always have paid the council officers. We always have paid the council chair. Now we have a deputy chair who we will only pay if they actually chair a meeting. So this is basically just codifying what we've always done into policy under our new system. Because we now have council speaker, not council chair. And I believe that's the entirety of this, correct? Yeah, go ahead.
The only point is that the speaker will be getting paid $150 instead of $125. And the only reasoning was to make it, to give them a different salary than the council clerk, or a different hourly, or a different amount of money than what the council clerk is making. So that was what Desmond was explaining in the VP or in the council budget, as whether that number would be increasing or not. It would be increasing, because we're increasing stipend to $150 instead of $125. They currently get paid $125, and then the question as well is, if we change this policy, would they get retroactively paid $150 since this time they started being speaker of those meetings?
No, they wouldn't be paid retroactively.
And the only justification here is that, it's just to give them more money than the council clerk. Does anybody see reason in that justification? And I kind of understand it.
So it's a savings if we don't increase it for the rest of the year. It's a savings of $150. Over the course of the entire year, it's an additional $300 for the council chair, whoever, like the speaker of council. I don't actually see any reason for the speaker of council to be paid more than the clerk of council. It always has been the same. They get an honorarium of $125. I am perfectly happy to amend it back down to 125. Does anyone feel particularly strongly in that regard?
I'm not too familiar with the distinctions between the two roles, but if you.
So the council clerk is essentially like the note taker.
Okay,
And the speaker is essentially like
the speaker.
both positions, like it's like grades.
Yeah.
Not really mean thing, but
Yeah.
kind of not a good.
I base that on 12 meetings. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's gonna be how many that end up being, but
hopefully.
that was so 250 per meeting. 12 meetings was the number that we came up with there for the 3,000.
Yeah, and was that based on 125 each?
Yes, so 250 per meeting. 12 meetings.
Yeah.
Is how we came up with $3,000.
I think adding another.
But so that reflects them being retroactive pay, which
It
you
would
said
be.
right now that they're not.
Because they're not being paid at all right now, is that correct?
No, they're not.
Per meeting.
Per meeting?
Yeah.
And so this would be correct. Huh?
Yes. At the current,
Sorry, is the Zoom still working?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
at the current rate. Now, if we increase the pay of the council, of the speaker of council. To 150 a meeting, we'd be looking at adding another $150 in expenses this year, which again, in the scheme of things, is not very much. I don't know if it's really warranted, though, to be perfect. If I'm being perfectly frank, not any reflection on Aaron's performance. I don't know why. It's an honorarium. It's not.
We've also like, put limits on how long meetings can go now, so they can't go as long as.
Yeah, so it's actually more likely that there's more meetings, not this.
No, there's the same amount of meetings.
emergency meetings and things, is what I'm thinking. But I would be perfectly happy to see it amended down to 150, down to 125. I am willing to make that motion. Do other, okay. This is just as interest, an item of interest. This is the first time we've ever actually amended a policy. Usually we just tell people to go rewrite them. Motion to amend. All right, I have to remember my Robert's rules. So be it resolved that is there only one instance of 150?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just been one.
That the word 150. Section 9.
Do we get any co-curricular record as well?
Right.
Do we get any co-curricular record?
That was the thing that happened. You should have to talk to Hannah about it. Hannah doesn't.
Honestly, I use all of mine because I never respected deadlines.
Yeah.
It's always like, ever since
Well, you could just.
year one. Yeah, exactly. My CC, whatever, I don't even use that.
Well, Carl, we end up getting a membership management system. One of the goals is for you to be able to do that and just manage it yourself. Add something, right?
Yeah.
Would be a profile, and you can print it off.
I think in CCR you can also add stuff, but now it takes like forever to be approved.
I tried to add a bunch of stuff last year because I figured that CPRC warranted a co-curricular record, and I don't think anything ever happened. All right. So we have a motion on the floor, a motion to amend, be it resolved that the word 150 in section 9A of H63 or F07, which is the policy we're looking at. I'm not going to write up the name of the policy. Be struck and replaced with 125. That's been moved by myself, seconded by President Stoikos Lettieri. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment?
Sorry, right?
That is unanimous if the president votes.
Sorry.
Sorry. Not that I'm forcing you to vote in favor, but I just assumed that you were. That is carried unanimously. All right. Back to the actual motion. We now have the policy as amended. Do we have any further discussion on the policy as amended? Hearing none, we can move into voting procedure. All those in favor, if you can raise your hands. All right, that is also carried unanimously. I have to say, I really love having a paper copy of the agenda.
Only took you 8 board meetings.
It's only took me 8 board meetings, but this impacts.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm geeking out. Yeah, anyway. I'm following my fortune cookie.
Grant, I just want to remind you that you're currently being recorded.
What, that I'm just happy? I think it shows extreme competence.
Definitely extreme exuberance.
Take this position seriously. Moving on to item 13.2, the motion to approve the counselor compensation policy, H61 F05. Be it resolved that the board adopt the counselor compensation policy H61 F05 as written. This has been moved by President Stoikos Lettieri. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Johan Seifert Charles. This is Appendix D in your agenda package. President Lettieri, would you like to speak to it, or would you like me to speak to it, or Director Adams Charles? I believe this one does not authorize any Any payment unless they are a chair of a committee. Which frankly, as a former chair of a committee, I'm happy to see that those chairs get paid something. Again, though, we're now talking about increasing our expenses. To $6,500. We could probably, because we're considering reducing our financial expenditures, we could probably have that honorarium for chairs of committees. $500 per academic semester seems a little extreme.
That's what I was gonna say as well. Yeah.
Because that's $1,000 if someone's a chair of a committee for more than.
I might just add that none of the committees have met / have met once or twice
Yeah,
for not more than an hour or two.
yeah. So I think,
In
It's
this
highly
entirety
paid,
of my term.
yeah, it's highly paid for the amount of
So
work.
they would be getting technically the chairs of the committees for this term. Would be getting paid $500 for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
I think it would actually be more reasonable to have something like a $50 honorarium per meeting.
Absolutely, I agree.
Rather than a blanket. Yeah, because there are committees. All right. So would we like to, other than that, there's no actual money. Compensation for CUSA counselors is only just a discount at CUSA businesses and a co-curricular record. So would we like to consider an amendment? All right. We're doing all sorts of stuff today.
I'll move or second it. If you want to move it.
I'll move it just for that.
Sorry.
So be it resolved that the text a $500 area for academic master.
Exactly. That's the next one. And then it's $60.
Yeah.
You want the exact wording?
You drop
This is my new call.
Right.
I'm still on the.
$50 honorarium per
Right.
with
So you can't see, but I can feel a new call right now, but you call can see. I'm still
the $50 honorarium per meeting.
So what we have like in exchange.
honorary,
so.
per
We're telling
meeting
you-
attended. I personally would consider adding a maximum $50 honorarium per meeting attended up to a maximum of 250 per academic semester. Rather,
5 meetings.
yeah, 5 meetings, which is totally reasonable.
Absolutely.
I met 13 times at the CPRC last year in one semester. I would have loved to have gotten $50 for every one of those meetings, but I also didn't deserve 605. Yeah.
you probably did.
So there are numerous committees that executives chair. This doesn't apply. This is
Only for counselors to be the chair of the committee. Yeah. Maximum of 200.
So how many committees are there?
There's like I think 12 or a few more, and like council committees. And genuinely only one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them have met each once
Right.
for a meeting no longer than.
I'm just curious if this number, it doesn't sound like it.
That is not what we do. Absolutely not.
No, especially now that we've just reduced it to a maximum of 250, it will be at most half of that.
Not even, yeah.
At most half of that.
So it's basically,
And the chairperson and council clerk one will go down.
so basically 250 per committee.
Per semester.
Per semester, so a maximum of 500 per committee.
Right?
Um,
How many committees?
So I believe there's, like, I think there's about 10 to 12, something like that. However, we are intending that out of those that are led by, because this
Yeah.
it's committee chairs has to be a CUSA counselor. So most of those committees are chaired by executives.
Hmm,
The ones that are not chaired by executives are going to be, I believe, the CPRC. Potentially the executive compensation one,
yes,
which that one would probably meet its quota. And then
maybe.
potentially,
But
yeah, I think that's chaired by an exec. So
it wouldn't be-
regardless, I would say like conservatively, we could say that maybe 4 committees will meet and pay a chair throughout the term.
So on the high end, if this number became 3,000, we would be.
That would be a high.
So
estimate.
it's 30,
that's a very high estimate.
but that would be a high estimate.
Yes,
Like
But
I generally estimate 2,500. Because for this, like, we're thinking now, we only have 1 semester left. For this semester, there will be a chair paid for 2 meetings. Yeah. So that's $100 for the entire semester.
yeah,
So that is too high. That we would go lower to 2,000. But anyways,
if we come under budget, that'll be fine,
yeah, we did cut it by 4,000.
yeah.
and the top. Council clerk can also go down, but you can do that later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All right.
I think. Yeah, I'm sorry. No.
no, go ahead.
Hold on.
All right, so we have a motion to amend on the floor, be it resolved that the text A, a $500, oh, hold on, I have to put the A in. A $500 honoraria per academic semester be struck and replaced with the text a $50 honorarium per meeting attended up to a maximum of $250 per academic semester. That's been moved by myself, seconded by President Stoikos-Latourie. Is there any discussion on that? Yes.
Is there certainty as to who it applies to?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does the policy specifically say it must be a counselor
Yes,
in
so
a chairing capacity?
yes, the section of the policy states, what is the additional compensation for a counselor serving as chair of a committee?
Okay, perfect.
Section 10, additional compensation for counselor serving as chair of a committee that meets at least once per month. Shall be,
That meets at least one.
that meets at least once per month.
Okay, so that would
Okay.
So it's once, you must meet once per month. And then you'll get paid $50.
Town, that all the committees that are met have not met once per month, and therefore they're not entitled to that pay then.
Okay.
So actually.
Assuming they implement that in the new semester. We should budget for that.
We gotta do
So
some.
that was.
And I mean, there are committees like CPRC, which should be meeting once per month. Not every week on Friday, but once per month.
But so that's essentially 4 meetings, right?
Yes,
This will be their second
First
meeting.
semester.
this is, yes, so they won't be eligible. But the other idea behind
Which
chair
is
compensation is to incentivize for them to actually meet once a
Yeah,
month,
agreed.
as they are supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah, I'm not questioning the logic by any means.
No, it's good. It's just
Yeah.
that for one term, we have $0.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we can do some math when we actually sit down and do some more crunch.
Yes.
So this number will also go down.
Yes, especially, yeah, 500. So it will now read, at least once per month shall be a $50 honorarium per meeting attended up to a maximum of $250 per academic semester, where the above criteria is met, which is still in the policy. We haven't struck it. We're not going to strike it and put it back in. So that is what this will be. So it is decidedly only a counselor, only if they're meeting 4 times a month.
Yes, semester.
A semester. Some other times a month.
To the policy to go make these amendments.
This will be Gavin who gets directed to do this. I will have to send him a note and go, yeah. You've amended your policy.
Great. That's great, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we haven't actually carried the motion to amend. All those in favor of the motion to amend? Just waiting.
Jody,
No, that's carried unanimously. All right, so we have the original motion. This is now becomes as amended. Be it resolved that the board adopt the counselor compensation policy number H61 F05 as amended, moved by President Soikos Lettieri, seconded by Director Huggins Charles. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, we can move into voting procedure. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. All right. Item 13.3.
I'll just say for this one, it's the exact same compensation, but I think it's a great idea to add the maximum potentially. The same maximum,
Which would be,
or would it be different because it's a trade union, the trade union members?
I doubt they will be meeting that often.
Yeah,
Although I would be willing to add a maximum. Perhaps this one per year,
yeah.
I would be willing to entertain that. We probably don't have to.
Yeah,
It's something that could be added at a later date if we discover that tribunal meetings are costing us tens of thousands of dollars a year.
don't they only meet if something is required to them?
Yeah.
If the system worked, we should have had to.
Yeah.
Add that to
If the system works, we shouldn't have.
Okay, so leave that one then.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? We do need a seconder, so it's moved by President Soikos Lettieri, seconded by Director Huggins Charles. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, hearing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. All right, item 13.4, the motion to approve the executive compensation policy. Be it resolved that the board adopt the executive compensation policy H60 F04 as written. This is moved by President Soikos Lettieri. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Huggins Charles. Does anyone wish to speak to this one? I can, just from what I remember at the meeting, again, this is just putting into policy what is already in practice, correct?
Yeah,
There's nothing exciting here as far as I know. Although the mandate is incorrect, it should read this policy shall be reviewed every 2 years by the board, not by council.
I think that's just the language.
It is a language thing, although it should be correct when we pass it. Wish I could just go in there and amend that.
Well, we can just put an amendment then.
Yes, if everyone's okay that we strike the word council. Yippee, all right. I wish this was an editable document and then I could just do that. All right, motion to amend, be it resolved that the word council in the mandate be struck and replaced with by the words the board. Moved by myself. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Huggins Charles. Sorry, I saw you move first. Sorry, Anastasia. Do we have any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? No, it's unanimous. Me? I can't even read my own handwriting. But I'll take the compliment. Back to the original motion. Be it resolved that the board adopt the executive compensation policy as amended. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. We haven't had a split vote on something there. We're still waiting to break the record on that one. Item 13.5. This is Appendix G of your agenda package. This is the motion to approve the ad hoc executive composition committee mandate letter that we've, I think, instructed many times to be rewritten. Whereas the Democratic Reform Report recommended that the 2022-2023 CUSA Council constitute a committee to evaluate the responsibilities and elements of CUSA executive roles. And whereas CUSA Council previously expressed interest in the roles of CUSA executives being evaluated once the restructure of CUSA was complete to determine if the roles continue to suit the organization. Be it resolved that the ad hoc executive composition committee be constituted. Be it further resolved that the committee receive and operate in accordance with the attached mandate letter. That's attached as Appendix G. That's been moved by President Stoikos Paturi. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Charles.
I have an amendment.
Okay, the time for discussion is now.
This motion, this mandate letter has gone through several people and like sort of, I don't know, but anyways, in my opinion, I think that there should be 2 counselors and 2 directors, because a student at large is incredibly hard to fill on a committee, number one, and this is an incredibly important committee that we need to get started working on this year. The reason why I believe there should be board directors is because board directors, a function of the board is, staffing executives and dealing with those job descriptions and things like that. And so they'd be well suited to have an opinion on the composition of an executive team. And when we talk about composition of an executive team, that means, whether we take away one of the positions, whether we merge a position, whether we keep it the same, add a position, but I do feel that it would be important to have a board voice on that committee.
Director Laurie?
Why can't the current governance and finance subcommittee of the board fill that role? Would it require a separate committee?
This is just a committee that has been created on our committee's list that was approved on our committee's list. And so now we're trying to fill it, but we just don't have a mandate letter to fill it. Yeah. So it's like the committee's already been created.
Yeah. Because I am conscious of the fact that there are many committees and we have limited time and we're all part of several committees. So I'm not sure. I'm not willing to step in another committee. I'm not sure if any of you guys are. At one point, there will be a lot of directors and committee vacancies.
I was actually thinking, as you said, it would be hard to fill the student at large position. I think you may find it hard to fill the director positions as well as we're now sitting on a great many things.
That's one thing not to be able to fill it. That's another not to have directors included, because they might be, if you're aware of this director that wants to be involved. And every committee.
But a director, it has the authority to designate that spot to someone else, right? Like you would be able, you have the authority, like if you have board of director on this committee, you can designate someone as your representative.
Doesn't?
That's a good point. I mean, you could always just designate me to represent the board on that.
Or something, yeah.
We can.
Yeah,
Share
I could be directed to provide anything you provided. It might make sense to have me there with the new way in which we want to move forward with budgets.
That's actually my other amendment, was to include a senior staff, the executive director with this. And then I also would recommend to have a chair, because it's been because they'll take the other committees with a clear chair. And I think this is one that, like we talked about in the previous meeting, that some of the executives have really wanted to get a move on with it. And I think like I'm more than happy to chair this committee as well. And I think it's within like, that's like this committee will take a little bit of extra work to chair. And it is something that can be done during work hours, which is why it's best on staff chair committee.
Right. Personally, I'm a bit indifferent to whether a director goes on there or not. Simply because it's a committee that is created to advise council and the board. Meaning that any recommendation they make has to be actioned by either council or the board. Meaning that any jurisdiction, any final decisions is made by the board. I am perfectly happy in this case to let a committee do the grunt work and then bring it to the board. And I feel that likely 3 councillors are able to do that. I don't feel we need a director on the board or on the committee, because ultimately the findings of this committee will likely come to the board and will advise us. Now, I'm certainly willing if there's desire in the room to add either 1 or 2 director positions. I would likely support it, although I don't believe there's a necessity.
I just think it's best that, like when you're being advised, it's good to have, somebody who more than one person who's there, who went through the discussions, who is able to answer all and any questions, etc.
I mean, the committee, when they're making recommendations, should be A, providing written recommendations, and B, I mean, obviously, if whoever, whether it be yourself or somebody else as the chair, would be expected to show up and represent the committee as well.
And also I suppose that at the end of the day, the board often has different not priorities, but they have different, they see the organization differently. They have an expectation too. Whereas, with lack of board participation in committees like this, we might see a very political decision brought forward to the board or to the board or council, and ultimately that would be, probably not a decision that goes through, and then we have to start the process all over again, like things like that, right? So it's just those things that I consider,
If you'd like to make the motion, you can make the motion and see if there's a seconder, see if there's desire.
I was talking your motion if you want me.
Like I would move to change it to 2 councillors instead of 3, 1 direct, or like you think we should keep the student at large then? It's just really hard to find. Like I would say keep the 3 councillors. Okay, I move to keep the 3 councillors, but replace the 1 student at large with 1 director. And add the executive director as a non-voting resource member.
So you're striking.
So strike
2B.
Yeah, strike 2B and replace it with 1 director.
Got nothing on this description.
And then add D.
Hold on.
Or actually amend C. Just to put like in brackets chair.
Okay. 1 student at large piece. Drop. To see text.
Just in brackets chair at the end of it.
Added. Inserted as the technical term.
And then
Section 2C. B.
Executive director, not voting resources.
But it's just because. Stone Maiden has not gone.
Now you're seconding that motion, Director Laurie?
That's on you.
All right, we have a motion to amend. Be it resolved that the text 2B, one student at large, be struck and replaced, yes. With to be one director.
One director.
Be it resolved that the text 2B, one student at large be struck and replaced with 2B, one director. Be it further resolved that the text brackets chair be inserted after president in section 2C. And be it further resolved that the text 2D, executive director, non-voting member, non-voting resource member be inserted. That's been moved by President Secretary, seconded by Director Kalari. Is there any discussion on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, that is unanimous. So we can move back to the original motion, which I'm not going to read out. The motion to approve the ad hoc executive composition committee mandate letter. We will now be approving the mandate letter that is amended. All those in favor? That is unanimous. All right. It would now be in order if anyone would like to self-nominate or nominate another director to sit on this committee. I'm a lack of interest.
And then remain on fulfill until such time that.
It can, yes, it can.
I think that's probably just the best.
Maybe Sarah or Simon jump to the position.
Maybe.
I think they're just as stretched thin as the rest of us are.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to item 13.6, the motion to approve the long-term strategic plan policy. Be it resolved that the board adopt the long-term strategic plan policy as written. This is included as Appendix H in your agenda package. President Secretary.
So this was amended by council because the VP SI, VP SL, and VP CE really wanted to be on the committee.
Right. I believe I was there at the time, so then the word executives.
Yeah, the concern is that the committee is humongous and it's going to be incredibly hard. And also it's not written here, but they're supposed to be non-voting. It is supposed to say non-voting. That was what they asked for at council.
Right, well, that if that's what they asked for, then that's what they asked for, and we'll approve it. Technically, we'll approve it as written. I mean, for one thing, it will be humongous, but I will also not be showing up at that many meetings because I have other commitments.
No, but sorry, are they going to be voting members or non-voting? Because here it says.
Did council approve them as non-voting members, and did council approve
I believe they sought advice from Sam, who didn't agree with the size of the committee. And said that it would be like the only reasonable outcome would be to add them as non-voting members, and that what I remember to the best of my ability happened at council.
But we're not sure whether they've been added as non-voting members. That makes it fun. We need to confirm that before we make any. Because if we approve it like this, and we determine that they're non-voting, we're gonna have to approve it again. Was that a comment on the procedure?
Run by and find some, you can like. Is it 800 pages?
Well, regardless, I believe that it should be non-voting as well. And I do believe that's what we discussed at council. To the best of my ability, that's what I remember.
I don't remember. I don't vote at council, so I wasn't paying that much.
Are they typically non-voting members?
They weren't supposed to be on this committee, but they really wanted to.
Okay,
provide
I mean, they should be
insight.
non-voting.
Yeah, and they were meant to provide insight, and they would have been called to the committee regardless.
We should amend
Yeah.
Okay.
Like all of the
Whether-
staff are non-voting as well.
Yeah, if it turns out that they've already been included as non-voting members by council, we'll have just amended this version and they will both have
Yeah.
agreed that it's non-voting. Right,
That is what I believe has
Yeah.
already happened.
resolved. That the tax.
Yeah. Beforehand.
After, five H, after issue.
Yeah, moving close to the girls.
I, after
Life
life,
and section 5J after engagement.
okay, that's exciting. All right, be it resolved that the text non-voting be inserted.
Sorry, I guess. Like, the concern that I did have with this policy, when it went to council.
Is this
Yeah.
the amendment or the policy?
Okay, yes.
Sorry, we'll vote on the amendment first. All right, we have a motion to amend on the floor. Be it resolved that the text non-voting be inserted in section 5H after issues, in section 5I after life, and in section 5J after engagement. That has been moved by President Zoka, seconded by Director Laurie.
Yeah.
Did I see you stick your hand up, or am I just? I'm sure I saw your hand go.
Yeah, I just,
It's fine. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Yep, carried unanimously. All right, back to the original motion, which I see we don't have a seconder for. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Director Jagger, go.
Sorry, I also see that, section 6 of the association shall develop and publish a strategic plan for a period spanning not less than 4 years. I had issue with this when it was being written, and I had issue with it when it was passed. I don't think that it should be less than 4 years, because that
Less than 4 years.
it should, but I think that putting not less than 4 years is like, that is too low. Like a 5-year strategic plan is not long enough for CUSA. Like CUSA needs to make a 10+ year strategic plan, genuinely.
I think the point is that included in any good 10-year strategic plan, there is a goal at 5 years.
No, but yes, I do understand that, but my concern is that perhaps this may be, we may see the committee come up with a 5-year strategic plan and end it there because of how much work that takes. And I genuinely believe that CUSA needs a long-term strategic plan, and that is longer than 10 years. Like a long-term strategic plan cannot be 5 years. Whether or not you should have goals at every year in a long-term strategic plan, but 5 years is not enough.
So I will say this, if we amended that, that would have to go back to council. Council would have to vote on it, and that would delay getting this committee started by however long.
I suppose I could just voice my concerns on the committee.
Yes.
as a chair.
This is a requirement that it be not less than 4 years. It is not that it be 5, it's that it be not less than 4. You would certainly have my support on the committee to do it for more than a period of more than 5 years.
Okay, sounds good. I'll make that the first vote.
I am not coming.
Is anyone here coming? Okay, the first vote is Thursday. Yeah.
I am not able to do it tomorrow. I hope to
Are
make.
you on board with the 10+ year plan?
Absolutely. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the long-term strategic plan policy as amended? All in favor? Agreed unanimously.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so. There might have been one when I had a conflict of interest, but
There it is.
anything that I've been, anything
Yeah.
that I've chaired for would be that. Okay, item 13.7, and we are working through, I only have 4 pages left. 5 pages left. One of them, though, is the impact section, which we'll get to shortly. That'll be quick. As appendix I in your agenda package, the motion to approve the procurement policy. Be it resolved that the board adopt the procurement policy as written. This is moved by.
Has the finance governance subcommittee seen this?
Yeah. I think we will do.
Where we would, remember, we were talking about how we wanted to decrease the amount of spending that's allowed without board approval or
There
board.
would be an amendment to the finance approval.
Oh, so that's not this one.
No.
Okay, okay. Just want to make sure. Yeah, I think, wasn't sure it goes.
Yeah, but we review this policy and vote to send it to the board.
Okay, with the little red changes in there.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the actual text of the policy.
Okay. This is just changing our current procurement policy, I assume, which is outdated, and very
I
difficult.
think this is literally just in practice what we've been doing this year, yeah.
We have a seconder for this one. Seconded by Director Charles.
One element, this is the one that contains the thresholds.
For like the RFQs, those ones,
But
not yeah.
you said you have to go to RFP.
for sponsorship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Have
minimum.
you reviewed this?
Yeah, no, I've seen it before. I think the threshold should be raised. But
Oh. Do you have amendments?
well, particularly we need to go to RFP, feasibility. Personally, I'd like to maybe see them brought up closer to kind of the thresholds, the public service directory, or directorate.
Is that something that we can amend tonight, or is that something the board should?
I think you should probably we should have a more holistic conversation about it. And if we need to amend it, we'll amend it.
To refer the policy and the financial improvements policy back to the finance and governance subcommittee, because we need to review that one as well for approvals in terms of what amounts are
Yeah.
has to be done without board approval, but then also we were talking about without, the.
Wait.
I think I think we should get rid of the next motion, and I think we should just send these two to the.
We won't get rid of it. It's already written. not rewriting it, I'm doing everything by hand.
Yeah, yes, exactly, because I was literally about to say the rest of that one.
Yep.
Okay,
So if
but I
we,
still want to move to refer both of those back to.
do we need to refer them both back, or can we pass it as is and amend it at a
No,
future
I
date?
think we should refer it. There's no need to pass and bring that, right? Like, we're already.
Is it already actually, is it already?
We already have a procurement policy.
And I believe it's,
It's,
Okay,
if not, like, almost the same.
maybe that's the one.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think that, I think
Yeah.
it's only been reformatted to match our policy.
Oh,
The
okay.
only difference is
Okay.
things written in red.
and there are some things written in red.
Yeah, so I would say like we can hold off and redirect, we can
Okay.
defer this back to the finance director.
So,
And
I would still follow the rules and principle.
but it's like literally the same, but in time, let's well, take a look at this.
I saw the same thing on my. I saw it and I didn't want to say anything.
It's beautiful. I really like.
I mean, people when I'm driving.
Yeah, but
I feel like it looks like that weird hyperspace in Star Wars. And I really like Star Wars.
Remember the post?
You like Star Trek?
No.
We need that.
Remember the post in finance.
It's good to watch the Buffalo Bisons because we have a Star Wars.
All right.
Once a year.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it was really fun.
I was, because I spent Halloween at work.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So good.
It was at Disney World in Austin, Portugal.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so
June of last year.
it's so good.
I know, yeah. Cost me a lot of money. I did it.
Wear it every year.
All right.
Literally, for the next 50 years.
So we have a motion to refer, be resolved that the board refer the procurement policy to the executive director and the finance and governance subcommittee for further review.
Yeah, that's.
Reasonably enough, that's moved by yourself.
Yep.
I
I mean, and probably the executive director and the VPF could take a look at this.
Yes.
Just gonna stay right in here to the VPF,
We'll bring that.
the executive director.
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, it's the procurement policy, like, for the two, to review it.
All right.
Thanks.
Any further discussion on this? We're now motioning to refer. All those in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thirteen point eight, this is a nice, easy one. Motion to direct the vice president internal to edit all policies referring to the DFA. Whereas the board has removed the position of Director of Finance and Administration and replaced it with the positions of Director of Finance and Director of Human Resources. Be it resolved that the board direct the VPI to review all policies and change all instances of Director of Finance and Administration to either Director of Finance, Director of Human Resources, or both as appropriate. Moved by President Dr. Satiri, seconded by Director Andrew Yaku. Is there any discussion on this? This is pretty straightforward. I do love when we make motions to tell people to do things. So. Pardon?
Nothing.
I heard that, Dustin. All those in favor? All right, that is unanimous.
I think you like to tell people to do other stuff because you like to empower them to be competitive.
Exactly. I'm empowering them. All right. Ooh, another motion to direct. We have a motion to direct the executive director and the vice president internal. Uh-oh, Dustin.
No, this is one I don't want to be.
Yes. Whereas the current
And I've also asked to add the VPF.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was written when we didn't have it.
Yeah, sorry, the vice president internal, and that needs to be replaced. Vice
Okay.
president finance. And it's just the vice president internal because he's acting
I'm gonna make these,
Before we move it.
oh, interesting, I put VPF here,
Okay, that's good.
VP, yeah, yes, we were making these back when we had no VPF. Whereas the current finance approvals policy requires that any unbudgeted spending over 14,999 be approved by the board. Be it resolved that the board direct the executive director and the VPF to amend the unbudgeted spending thresholds to 999 requiring 9,999 requiring approval by the board, and for unbudgeted spending over 1,999 be approved by the president, VPF, and executive director, or such limits as deemed appropriate. Moved by President Cycles Materi. I will second that. So we've given you a ballpark idea where what we'd like to see. But obviously we're,
Roll with it.
yes, whatever you think is appropriate, but we've given you sort of a ballpark.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we've also added the fact that not only should things over 10,000 be approved by the board, but anything over 2,000 should be approved by at least by those 3 people in the office.
Before it's spent.
Yeah. So you don't need to come to the board for some $3,000 expense, but you do need to run it by somebody else in the office and go, hey, I want to spend this money, can I? Just like we already do with our signatories. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor? All right, that is carried unanimously. Steve and Dustin, consider yourselves directed. And that sheet of paper right over. All right. With that, we move to what is now item 17. Actually, we can technically move to. We're done item 13, on to item 14, notice of motion. Does anyone want to bring a notice of motion for the next meeting? No. There's no unfinished business. There's no other business. Item 17, question and answer period. Does anybody have any questions or any answers? I have no answers for anything.
Neither do I.
All right, hearing none, we can move to the in-camera section. So I will ask, or hold on. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 6 of the CUSA board rule, the board moved in camera, moved by President Douglas Lettieri. We have a seconder, Director Judge Yacoub. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, we are now in camera. So if the recording can be stopped, let's see, I've been writing it all night.
Am I? No, I'm not recording.
Yes, you're recording, you can see
Yeah.
it in the corner.
No, I know, but I'm not responsible for it.
Well, I think you are.
Oh, well, you can just.
I don't like it when my Wi-Fi. goes
Oh,
off.
maybe I'm recording.
No, it's me. It's definitely me.
No, I'm recording. I'm the host now.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can